It was a romance fueled by passion and secrecy. He was a smooth operator with a shady history.
A smooth guy who could say all the right things.
She, a beautiful singer with an angelic voice.
She sang with such grace and passion.
And a soft spot for bad boys.
She didn't want her family to know.
But their affair was cut short when one of them vanished into thin air.
This case was just twisted beyond belief.
Is this a crime of passion or the work of a cold-blooded criminal?
I think he is a sociopath.
He may not have shown his true cards to her. And when she found out, he dealt a big joker. And it was a violent one.
My brother just came to my house and told me that he killed his girlfriend.
Wednesday, June 16th, 2004, 7:25 p.m. It's a humid evening in Spartanburg, South Carolina. On the south side of town, two police officers pull up to an unassuming home in a quiet neighborhood. They're investigating a missing persons report filed by a woman who's been trying to get a hold of her niece for weeks.
Her aunt called in and wanted to perform a welfare check. And when police arrive, they end up forcing entry into the residence.
When officers set foot inside the home, a powerful stench overwhelms them. In the bedroom, they make a horrifying discovery.
There were dogs that had been there that obviously was pregnant and had puppies, and no one has been there for probably a couple of weeks. They became malnourished and some of them even died.
It's just a terrible scene to walk into.
When detectives saw the state of the house, that's when they started to take this case very seriously because they knew that nobody would leave their house or their pet in that state.
170 to dispatch.
But the officers can find no sign of the missing woman, dead or alive. The only thing investigators know for certain is the homeowner's name, Tamika Houston. Raised in South Carolina, Tamika Houston was eager to grab life by the reins.
Tamika was a cute, petite, 4'11", 125-pound dynamo. She had a very outgoing personality. She had a beautiful smile.
Full of life, full of life. She loved children. She loved animals. She was just a real people person.
She talked to family members and friends. They just said she's one of the nicest people you can meet.
Tamika was also a church-going girl and never missed Sunday service.
Tamika was religious, and she tried to live by the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Tamika was also the star of the church choir.
She had a very unique sound, and it was a beautiful voice. She sang with such grace and passion.
She loved to sing. Her voice, just her size, 4'11", she had a strong voice. Very strong voice.
Though it wasn't just her kind heart and heavenly voice that attracted people to Tamika.
She was beautiful on the inside, on the outside. She was just always so sweet and friendly.
Friends and family believed Tamika's talent and good looks had her destined for stardom.
Tamika was trying to find herself. She just hadn't really figured out which direction she wanted to go in life professionally. And I think that she was hoping that maybe singing would be something that would lead her to the life she wanted.
As much as Tamika longed to be a professional singer, she was hesitant to leave Spartanburg in order to fulfill that dream. That's because in the summer of 2000, Tamika fell for a handsome bad boy, the rough, tough, and extremely charming Terrence Moss.
I was at my family's convenience store. I came out of the store and I was going to get on my motorcycle, and then she popped up and she said, "Do you have an extra helmet?" We went riding and we exchanged numbers and we started a relationship. Ever since that day.
He had a very large, outgoing personality. He's a bit of a character. Sometimes the way to a woman's heart is if you can make her laugh, you can get in there. I think Terrence made his way into Tamika's heart with giggles and laughs.
Terrence and Tamika's love connection was intense from the get-go.
In the beginning of a relationship, there's always a honeymoon period. And everybody's on their best behavior. There's a lot of positive energy.
It was instant soulmate. Just the love that we shared between each other, you would have thought that we were married. We complemented each other very well.
That positive energy carried over into the bedroom.
Terrence and Tamika pretty much did what young people in their 20s do when they're dating. I think for Terrence, when he hooked up with Tamika, he had kind of gotten a little gem. He gets this beautiful, exotic woman.
She had a big heart and such a small body. That was a great attraction for me.
The sexual chemistry between Tamika and Terrence was undeniable. But apparently, some of Tamika's friends worried Terrence was trouble.
Terrence had had previous involvement with law enforcement and with district attorney's offices, which is more commonly known as a record.
Tamika was willing to overlook Terrence's checkered past, but she feared her family might pressure her to break off the relationship if they ever found out about his criminal record.
So what do you have planned for today?
Nothing really.
Not really? Nothing?
I don't know that Tamika's family knew a whole lot about Terrence and Tamika's relationship because she wasn't really introducing him to all of her friends and family.
But keeping their romance on the down low proved difficult once Terrence moved in with Tamika and her trusty pit bull, Macy.
Well, I'm going to go out with Gail and Jenny after work, okay? You go out with your friends tonight?
Yeah.
You don't have anything planned during the daytime?
No, I'm probably just going to catch up with some sleep, honestly.
Terrence didn't work a lot. I think that led to some strain in the relationship. Tamika had to get up and go to work every day, pay the bills. There may not have been as much contribution from Terrence.
Terrence's behavior ultimately caused Tamika to question his fidelity.
When people start to not trust their partners, that can lead couples into a very unhealthy dynamic.
Where the hell you been?
The situation came to a head one night in 2004.
Every night you out, I'm so sick and tired of this.
And Tamika's rage sent Terrence over the edge.
Why are you yelling at me?
An altercation between Terrence and Tamika, and it got ugly.
She was ready to fight. And I snapped back and I punched her.
I'm not dealing with you, you stupid.
You what? Look, I run this. You remember that.
The incident prompted Tamika to press charges and Terrence to move out of the house. But making a clean break from Terrence would prove more difficult than Tamika ever imagined, especially once Terrence moved into an apartment just a few miles away. But as investigators survey the scene inside Tamika's home, they can't help but wonder, has Tamika skipped town of her own free will? Or has something more sinister transpired? The search for answers will lead investigators into a sordid web of lies, deceit, and the ultimate betrayal. When she met Terrence Moss, 20-year-old Tamika Houston thought she'd found the man of her dreams.
I'm not going to do this anymore,
You're not going to do what?
But Terrence and Tamika's storybook romance had turned out to have a not-so-happy ending.
It was a tumultuous relationship. It was not all smooth sailing.
But Tamika's relationship woes paled in comparison to the horrific discovery police made inside her home in June 2004.
The house was in a state of disrepair. A dog had allegedly eaten one of the puppies.
Something she treasured and loved very much was dead. It goes from this is unusual to this is probably foul play.
Officer, what do you got?
Moments later, detectives are on the scene. Their first notion is that there's been a home invasion.
Any signs of forced entry?
No signs of forced entry. When we did our search, we did find the purse, though.
Her purse was still in the house, her driver's license, things that a woman normally takes with her when she's leaving home, all of that was still there.
Is that her cell phone? That phone was with the purse.
Have you had a chance to take a look at it?
No, I have not.
That feeling starts to creep in that something's happened to Tamika. And we hope to God it's not the worst case scenario.
Confusing matters even more is that Tamika's car is nowhere to be found. Was it another clue to this case? Or could Tamika have left town intentionally to start a new life elsewhere?
If things weren't panning out like she expected, she could have easily decided to try to just get a new start, and she just left.
I'm gonna take a look around.
Yeah.
But why would Tamika leave town without telling anyone?
In this particular case, police are trying to start an investigation 2 weeks after the fact. Lots of leads grow cold, and witnesses forget things, so that definitely creates a problem.
Hoping to unravel this mystery, detectives reach out to family and friends. Most of them have no idea where Tamika might be.
Do you know what happened?
Not exactly. That's what we're here trying to figure out.
But one friend tells police that a few weeks earlier, Tamika came to see her.
I do like red.
It's fun. Gives a little bit of pizzazz to it.
While she was there, she received a call.
Give me about 10 minutes. Okay, I'll be there. All right.
When Tamika hung up, she told her friend she had to run.
What's that about?
Something good.
A few minutes later, a car pulled up outside.
Tamika got in, she waved goodbye to her friend, and they drove off.
She get a look at him?
No, I'm sorry. I didn't think to look.
Investigators can't help but wonder if the driver of that car was Tamika's ex, Terrence Moss.
Boyfriends and husbands are persons of interest a high amount of the time because they are the perpetrator a disproportionately high amount of time.
Jealousy and anger can lead people to commit violence against one another. It's led to murders, disappearances, and definitely assaults.
The notion that Terrence might be responsible for Tamika's disappearance gains even more traction when investigators research the domestic assault charges Tamika filed against Terrence. Turns out, they were set to square up in court in a matter of days.
You have a girlfriend and a boyfriend that's having a domestic dispute, so quite naturally, the boyfriend is always the number one suspect.
On June 23rd, detectives bring Terrence down to the station for questioning.
You know Tamika Houston?
Yeah, I know Tamika.
When's the last time you saw her?
A couple weeks ago.
Terrence claims he's been distant from Tamika since she decided to press charges against him.
What happened a couple of weeks ago?
We had an argument.
An argument, okay. When was the last time you saw Tamika Houston?
I already told you a couple weeks ago.
And that's it?
Yes.
He adamantly said, I did nothing to harm this woman. I loved her. I didn't do anything, and I don't know where she is.
Police have their doubts. They grilled Terrence about the pending domestic violence charges.
We just got into a fight.
Did you hit her?
Yeah.
And the coincidental timing of Tamika's disappearance.
They had some domestic violence issues in the past, but he insisted that he was innocent.
With little cause to hold him, detectives tell Terrence he's free to go.
If you're lying to us, we're going to yank you back in here.
Meanwhile, CSIs process Tamika's house, searching for any physical evidence that might tie Terrence to her disappearance.
Investigators are looking for any evidence of her disappearance or murder. They would search the residence for bloodstains, hair, or any other forensics information.
When the police searched, they were unable to find any information connecting Terrence to Tamika's disappearance.
But soon, a shocking phone call will lead detectives to the shores of a nearby lake and lead Tamika's friends and family to fear the worst.
As cold blood as you can get.
Okay, what is your name? I can't tell you that, ma'am, because the police will pick me up.
It's been almost 10 days since Tamika Houston was reported missing. Investigators have discovered that her ex-boyfriend, Terrence Moss, allegedly assaulted her and was due in court the same week Tamika went missing.
That was one of those things that had the police seriously intrigued as to could he have enough motive for her to be gone.
But Terrence is adamant he had nothing to do with Tamika's disappearance. And CSIs can find zero physical evidence linking him to any crime.
There's not really any hard evidence. We can't find where she's gone, can't find where maybe a crime scene had been located. You don't have any signs of forced entry. There's no forensics evidence. So that doesn't give an investigator a whole lot to go on.
Whenever an adult goes missing, there's always speculation that maybe that person had a secret life. Maybe that person broke character and just departed from everything that they had been and just ran off.
She was a person that loved to just up and leave, but something was different about this time.
If Tamika had tried to put some miles between her and Terrance, she'd need money to do so. Investigators subpoena her credit cards and bank statements, but that only deepens the mystery.
Tamika had last used her debit card 2 days before she was last seen. There was no activity after that day.
Things weren't adding up to a free will vanishing. There was something wrong here, and there was probably something seriously wrong.
Fearing the worst, detectives begin checking local hospitals for any Jane Does that have recently been admitted. They also look to see if there are any 911 calls that could be related to Tamika's disappearance.
This is what I called you guys about.
In doing so, they make a discovery that stops them cold.
Spartanburg 911. My brother just came to my house, and he told me he killed his girlfriend and put her in Cleveland Park Lake.
Where does your brother live?
He stayed at the park still.
Cleveland Park is located just a few miles from Tamika's home, as are the Barksdale apartments. But those aren't the only details that give investigators a pause.
He said he drowned her because something about he got drunk and she'd been cheating on him.
Okay, what is your name?
I can't tell you that, ma'am, because the police will pick me up.
Is it possible ex-boyfriend Terrance killed Tamika in a jealous rage and then dumped her body in Cleveland Park Lake?
I believe police were looking at Terrance as a possible suspect because there were so many similarities.
Given this startling new information, detectives execute a search of the area around Cleveland Park Lake.
Police officers dispatched cadaver dogs. They checked the shoreline. They even had rescue divers to go down and see if they could recover any bodies in the lake.
They searched the lake several times and they found nothing.
Then it also puts the department back to ground zero, not to mention it also leaves the family members and friends still in limbo.
Through it all, Terrance Moss maintains he isn't responsible for his ex-lover's mysterious disappearance.
Let them do what they wanted to do. Didn't find anything. I had nothing to hide. Told them thank you, and y'all wasting a lot of time.
Terrance loved Tamika unconditionally.
Still, more than a few people have their doubts about the veracity of Terrance's statement.
It would make sense that Terrance might be involved. They had had a rocky relationship, and sometimes love can make you do crazy things.
With the investigation at a stalemate, Tamika's family decides to take matters into their own hands. They post flyers around town, offering a reward for any information about Tamika.
I've checked woods, I've checked abandoned houses, I've checked lakes, I've checked dumpsters, I've checked landfills. I've been everywhere looking for my daughter.
The flyers trigger a flood of tips. Most are dead ends. But one caller claims to have recently spotted someone matching Tamika's description.
That tip raised hopes that Tamika was still alive and just a missing person.
We really appreciate you taking the time to come in.
No problem, no problem.
Investigators sit down with the man who called in the tip and slide him a photo of Tamika.
Well, this is our girl here. I'd like to take a look at her.
After police interviewed the man that said he saw a woman matching Tamika's description around town, he said it looked like one of his co-workers.
When I saw the flyer, I just thought, for sure.
But that's not her.
I know a girl looks just like her, but her name's not Tamika.
The tip ended up being a dead end.
With the clock ticking, investigators are beginning to lose hope of ever finding Tamika.
The longer the period is, the less chance of finding evidence or clues. It deteriorates or something may destroy it, or if there's foul play, then the individuals involved may clean up or remove the evidence.
But soon a new tip will come rolling in, and a single turn of a key will unlock the horrible truth about what really happened to Tamika Houston. Tamika Houston thought she'd found true love when she met Terrance Moss. But after a tumultuous relationship ending in a violent confrontation, Tamika filed assault charges against Terrance. Shortly after that, she vanished without a trace. And investigators are struggling to understand what happened.
There's not really any hard evidence. We can't find where she's gone. We can't find where maybe a crime scene had been located.
But investigators are much closer to finding Tamika than they realize. Police dispatchers receive a complaint about an abandoned car at the Barksdale apartment complex near Cleveland Park Lake, the same lake police had searched earlier.
The windows were rolled down. It looked like the car had been parked there several weeks because it had been weathered.
Investigators head over to the Barksdale, where they find an abandoned Honda Civic.
I got here, ran the license plate. It comes back to Tamika Houston.
Our missing girl.
That's her.
An abandoned vehicle turns out to match Tamika's car. You wonder if she was abducted, if the person may have dumped the car there. Investigators combed the vehicle. They did not find any kind of evidence of foul play or blood or gunpowder or anything.
They did, however, find a set of car keys that did not go to Tamika's car in the console.
There were 2 keys that went to a car. Those keys fit Fords made between the 1950s and 1980s. And then there were a couple other keys that looked like they went more to your standard residential type door locks.
Detectives tried the keys in every door at the Barksdale apartment complex to no avail. They also interviewed several residents who provide conflicting accounts.
While police were conducting the canvass of the apartment complex, they found an individual that saw 2 African-American men abandon the car in the parking lot.
But a second resident reports seeing a single African-American male park the vehicle there a while back. Investigators can't help but wonder if this was the work of their prime suspect, Terrence Moss. Or could someone else have possibly targeted Tamika Houston?
They were looking for anything that might lead them to clues on Tamika's disappearance.
Looking for answers, investigators turn once again to Tamika's friends and family. Speaking to her father, they begin to learn more about Tamika's volatile relationship with her ex-lover, Terrence Moss. Turns out, Tamika wasn't the only woman in Terrence's life.
He was married before he had even started dating Tamika.
According to Tamika's father, Terrence's wife wasn't happy about his relationship with Tamika, and one day she decided to pay her a visit.
This random woman shows up to Tamika's house. Turns out she's his wife, Jennifer Moss.
Could Jennifer Moss have been so angry about her husband's relationship with Tamika that she murdered her in order to put an end to the affair?
Jennifer Moss allegedly confronted Tamika and said, "I'm going to kill you." She saw Tamika as some kind of threat.
He did have children with his wife. Terrence's children used to spend a lot of time with Tamika, which made Jennifer very angry.
For police, it's a stunning turn of events. They couldn't help but wonder if Jennifer had made good on her threats, but Terrence isn't so sure.
There were so many rumors, untruths, things that people just made up, things that people just pulled out of the sky.
Investigators decide it's time to get some answers. Wasting no time, they track down Jennifer and press her about her alleged threats and Tamika's disappearance.
Did you ever confront her, threaten to kill her?
Absolutely not. No.
Jennifer, did you have anything to do with her disappearance?
No, I did not.
Her and Tamika never had any encounter. That was all just gossip and rumors.
According to Jennifer, after learning he'd shacked up with Tamika, she'd filed for divorce. What's more, she claimed their problems involved much more than infidelity.
He was very violent. He had a temper.
Jennifer and I, had disputes and arguments. She may have had some bad things to say because our marriage ended bad.
According to Jennifer, Terrence simply wasn't worth the effort of attacking Tamika.
When the police talked to Jennifer, my ex-wife, they found that she was not a person of interest. As far as her and Tamika goes, no run-ins with each other, no exchanges, that's totally fabricated.
Given the allegations of abuse, coupled with the discovery of Tamika's car, investigators bring Terrence Moss in for another round of questioning. Terrence steadfastly maintains he had nothing to do with Tamika's disappearance.
I was just screaming on the inside. I was like, why won't y'all listen to me? Why won't y'all listen to me?
He was adamant about loving Tamika and adamant that he brought no harm to this girl.
Detectives tossed the keys they recovered from Tamika's car in front of Terrence.
Recognize those?
No. Should I?
They're your keys.
No, I've never seen those before.
In order to verify Terrence's claim, detectives head to his apartment.
They tried this key in every single door, and the keys did not fit.
Once again, detectives are unable to tie Terrance to Tamika's disappearance.
Terrance kept saying to me, I ain't no killer. I ain't no killer. I'm a guy who laughs and jokes around. Yes, I love the ladies, but no, I'm no killer.
He was just an innocent guy who got caught up in a bad situation and was wrongfully accused of something.
Having reached a dead end in their investigation, detectives decide to retrace their steps. They start again with the keys they found in Tamika's car.
They start going to the different local locksmiths to see if any of them may identify or recognize the key and can maybe give them some other kind of lead of where it would go to.
Finally, a small hardware store recognized the key.
Due to a marking that he put on his keys, he's able to look up in his logbooks.
Looked at that key and said, that key goes to the Fremont School apartments.
It was an old schoolhouse that had recently been turned into apartments. I believe there were over 40 apartments.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh,
You the apartment manager?
I'm the apartment manager.
Nice to meet you.
Hi. Well, nice to meet you.
Detectives immediately head to the Fremont School apartments and begin the painstaking process of inserting the key into each of the complex's 47 doors.
The investigators secured the area as they went and checked the doors to try to see if they could find the door that the key would work for.
Hours into the search, and investigators have tried 46 locks. None of them are a match.
Almost coming to the end of it, they actually kind of give up hope.
Find anything?
No, didn't fit any of those either.
But when investigators get to the 47th and final door, something miraculous happens.
We got it. This is it.
Just like a scene out of a movie, the key fit into the very last door of the building.
What they find on the other side will lead investigators to the darkness on the edge of town and the brutal truth about what happened to Tamika Houston.
What he did in this case was just twisted beyond belief.
It's now been more than 5 months since 24-year-old Tamika Houston vanished. After running down a slew of dead-end leads, investigators have made a startling discovery. A mysterious key found in Tamika's abandoned car is a match to a door in the Fremont School apartments.
This is a big break in the case. Police will now try to find out who owns this apartment.
But the apartment is completely empty.
Clear.
There was nobody in the apartment when the police got there.
It's empty.
Was this apartment leased?
Without a warrant, investigators can't formally search the place. They ask the landlord to pull the rental history on apartment 47.
This unit is vacant right now.
Who used to live here?
A Chris Hampton.
Investigators are taken aback.
Chris Hampton?
They've never heard of anyone named Chris Hampton throughout their extensive investigation.
The fact that there was a Christopher Hampton that did live in an apartment at that particular time throws another person of interest into the case at this point.
Tell you what we're going to do. We're going to post an officer here at the door, come back with a search warrant and forensics, and really do a thorough search.
Okay.
Detectives run a background check and quickly discover Chris Hampton is no stranger to law enforcement.
Chris Hampton was someone I would characterize as a thug.
He was a thief, a quiet thief, not a sneaky thief.
When the police actually went searching for this guy named Chris that everyone was talking about, he was in jail.
If Chris Hampton was in jail at the time Tamika went missing, then it's unlikely he had anything to do with her disappearance. However, a closer examination of Chris's records reveal he's only been in jail about 5 months, which means he was a free man at the time Tamika disappeared. So what exactly is his connection to Tamika? But one of Tamika's close friends reveals that she and Chris had recently started dating.
Tamika may have went with Chris thinking that he could give her the safe haven to get away from Terrance. And he would be able to protect her and take care of her.
Police also learned Tamika had met Chris at the end of April 2004, when she and a friend attended his birthday party. From the moment they laid eyes on each other, they had an instant connection. Detectives decide it's time to talk to Chris Hampton.
Mr. Hampton, we need to speak to you about Tamika Houston.
What do y'all want to know?
What was your relationship with her?
Chris explains the relationship in one word.
Sex. It was sex.
Nothing else.
Nothing else.
Chris Hampton was a smooth operator. He could present himself to Tamika Houston as this suave, smooth guy who could say all the right things. And yet, the other Chris Hampton that he may not have shown her was a criminal.
It appears Tamika kept the true nature of her budding relationship with Chris a secret from friends and family.
Usually, family members know, your friends know, maybe even the aunt in Florida should have known. But the first time police heard about Chris Hampton's and Tamika Houston's relationship was from him.
When's the last time you saw her?
Investigators ask Chris if he had anything to do with Tamika's disappearance. Chris tells them he last saw Tamika on May 27, 2004, 18 days before she disappeared.
She came over, she asked me for some money, and that was it.
And you're going to stick with that's the last time you saw her?
Yeah.
And why were your keys in her car?
Like I said, she came over, she asked me for some money, and that was it. It's the last time I saw her.
To investigators, Chris's claims seem suspicious. On January 10, 2005, they obtain a warrant to search Chris Hampton's apartment at the Fremont School Complex. A forensic team combs the place. It's not long before they uncover a curious bit of evidence.
They find a bleach stain, and to the naked eye, it just looks like a bleach stain on carpet.
When CSIs darken the room and spray the chemical luminol, they make a ghastly discovery.
It was found that this apartment was covered in blood.
That had been cleaned up, obviously. But they went and checked the floorboard and found blood in subflooring of the apartment.
CSIs collect samples and compare them to DNA collected from Tamika's apartment.
It found that the blood was Tamika's blood. That would definitely move Mr. Hampton to the front of the line as far as suspects go.
But a suspect in what exactly? Detectives still don't know if Tamika is alive or dead.
The blood evidence found at Chris Hampton's apartment would not have been out of place. If she'd spent any time around him and they were in a relationship, it's quite possible that the blood could have gotten there in another way.
The blood evidence is enough to bring formal charges against Chris Hampton.
Based off the evidence, they had enough probable cause to have him arrested.
With charges pending, investigators question Chris again.
They confronted him with the evidence they had, obviously the blood that was found in his apartment.
You want to tell us the truth?
That's when Chris Hampton does a surprising about-face.
I know what happened.
I guess the guilt had ate him up, and he decided to come clean. He admitted that he had actually been the one that killed Tamika.
We got into a fight. It got heated. And I hit her.
Tell us exactly how it happened.
Hello.
According to Chris, it all began on the afternoon of May 27, 2004.
Just give me about 10 minutes and I'll be out there. Okay. All right.
After talking to Tamika on the phone, Chris picked her up at her friend's house. And they returned to his apartment, where Chris claims the two then had sex. Later that evening, while Chris was ironing a shirt, Tamika asked to borrow some money.
Baby, can I borrow $200?
You know, I'm going to pretend like you didn't say that. That's what I'm going to do. Pretend like you didn't say that at all.
Like I didn't.
His version is she was asking for money. He made it clear to Tamika he didn't have any money to give to her.
You dare ask me for money when you know I got kids, I got things to take care of?
He was going to provide for a child he had with another woman.
Why do you keep putting your kids and me in
How
one?
dare you tell me that, listen, this ain't love. This is not a relationship. Stay out of my business. Don't ask me for no money.
You know, you were such a sorry excuse of a man.
And in a flash of anger, he struck her with an iron.
She fell to the ground and I knew she was dead.
I'm not sure how one accidentally hit someone with the iron. I think it takes a lot of violent tendencies in order to think about throwing an iron at someone, particularly someone's head.
Why didn't you call an ambulance, somebody to come and try and help her?
I thought it was too late.
Had he done what you're supposed to do in an instance like that, taken her to the emergency room, number one, she may very well be alive, but he didn't. He put her in a closet, then he tried to clean up a crime scene.
After Tamika spent several hours hidden in his closet, Chris says he wrapped her body in a carpet, drove to some woods not far from Cleveland Park Lake, where he buried Tamika's body in a shallow makeshift grave.
It's also shocking that he could just murder her and dump her in a gravesite like common trash. That disturbs me.
I think that Chris just snapped because he was angry with Tamika.
The guilt got to him, and I think it ate him up basically at that point, and he panics.
That evening, Chris Hampton leads investigators to the spot where he claims to have buried Tamika Houston.
He, for whatever reason, marked the grave with some twigs that he made into a cross.
A team from the coroner's office sets about the grim task of unearthing the body.
They want to make sure they get every piece of evidence they can. They find every bone they possibly can in that crime scene. Unfortunately, they could not find her head, where he had told them that he had went back to her body and had really dug it up. He originally thought that he was going to turn himself in, but decided not to. He had took her head and actually put it in a trash bin, and it was not found.
His actions are just so vile that it's hard to even wrap your brain around why somebody would do those kinds of things.
CSIs do find a piece of jawbone, which they cross-reference with Tamika's dental records.
There were dental records that were consistent with Tamika's, but there was also jewelry that was consistent with Tamika's.
Her family was holding on to hope. It was painful for them to hear that Tamika's body was found.
Knowing what happened to her, knowing that she was so disrespected even after she was gone, I think that has to be a very hurtful emotion for a family to experience.
Chris Hampton is booked on charges of murder. He maintains Tamika's death was an accident.
It was going to be hard for him to sell that he didn't mean to kill her. His actions were louder than words, because his actions showed that he murdered her, meant for her never to be found, and probably would not have been found if it wasn't for finding out the keys and finding out the DNA in the apartment.
He went into a rage and killed her. That's what I feel in my heart.
But with no eyewitnesses to counter Chris's assertions, proving Tamika's death wasn't an accident could be harder than prosecutors imagined. Searching for answers in the Tamika Houston case, detectives have finally uncovered the truth. It seems that in an effort to protect herself from her allegedly abusive ex-boyfriend Terrence Moss, Tamika found herself in the arms of a lover with an even more violent streak. Career criminal Chris Hampton.
Tamika, obviously, from the pattern that we're starting to see, had an interest in bad boys. And unfortunately, which led her to this violent individual.
When are you gonna make me a priority?
Oh, a priority.
He may not have shown his true cards to her. And when she found out, he dealt the big joker. And it was a violent one.
Chris Hampton maintains Tamika's death was an accident. Prosecutors find Chris's claim dubious, but with no other eyewitnesses to refute his story, a murder conviction is by no means a slam dunk.
It was not necessarily murder. It could have been manslaughter. It could have been self-defense. It could have been an accident.
On April 3, 2006, the trial begins. Chris Hampton is led into Spartanburg Circuit Court in shackles. If convicted, Chris could face 30 years to life in prison. But before opening statements begin, Chris Hampton makes a surprise announcement.
He admitted that he killed Tamika Houston with malice aforethought.
He got angry. He meant to kill her, and he basically had an evil heart.
Chris didn't really see a way out and felt like it didn't matter. He was going to be punished for it anyway.
Fearful for his life, Chris begs the court for leniency, but the judge shows little mercy.
This particular judge listened to the facts, and he concluded that life without parole was the proper sentence. He will be in prison until he dies.
Even as Chris Hampton is carted off to prison, Those closest to Tamika can't help but lament the bizarre chain of events that led to her murder.
I would just want to be able to sit and look him in his eyes, in his face, and to tell him, like, you have no idea what you took from this world.
It makes you realize that you really never know people. When I first met Christopher Hampton, I never thought that he would be the reason that Tamika is not here with us today.
You never know who you're sleeping with. Tamika didn't know what Chris was capable of, and she hadn't seen the dark side of his personality. And when she finally saw it, it was violent and it was lethal.
They gave Gerald Barnbaum a bus ticket. They told him to report to a facility in Illinois. Barnbaum took the ticket, walked out of the prison gates, and immediately vanished. He didn't go to Illinois. He went back to the only life he knew how to live. A month later, U.S. Marshal Joseph Exner walked into a North Hollywood clinic. He had a hunch. He didn't look for a man in a jumpsuit. He looked for a man in a lab coat. Gerald Barnbaum. Exner called out. A man stepped out of an exam room. He was wearing a crisp white coat, the stethoscope draped around his neck. He looked at the marshals and smiled that practiced. Clinical smile. You guys are good, Barnbaum said, turning around to be handcuffed. He had been back on the job for weeks, seeing patients, prescribing controlled substances, and collecting a paycheck as Dr. Gerald Barnes. He was 63 years old, and he was already planning his next comeback. Chapter 13, The $9 Million Lesson. The fallout from Barnbaum's final act at Executive Health Group was catastrophic. Carl Jansen, an executive at Atlantic Richfield, had been one of Dr. Barnes's patients. He had undergone a full physical, including a prostate exam performed by a man with no medical training. I saw him on the evening news the next day. Jansen recalled, the disgust still evident in his voice. Handcuffs. The evening news. I had trusted this man with my health, my privacy. Jansen wasn't alone. Nearly 500 former patients joined a civil lawsuit. The evidence revealed a shocking lack of diligence. Executive Health Group hadn't performed even a basic background check. If they had, they would have seen the multiple felony convictions and the trail of dead and duped patients. The company was forced to settle for over $9 million. It was a price paid for greed and negligence, and it put the firm out of business. But for the victims, the money didn't erase the feeling of being violated by an imposter. Chapter 14, The Pet Store Dream. While Barnbaum was a ghost in the clinic, David Brankel was a predator in the pet store. In Vincennes, Alan and Becky Logan were the embodiment of the American dream. They ran Logan's Wet Pets and More, a beloved local institution. They wanted to expand to build a family entertainment complex called Logan's Great Escape. When they met David Brankel, they thought their prayers had been answered. He looked like a gift from God, Becky remembered. He had the suits, the Vanguard Capital marketing materials, the timetables. He looked legit. Brankel charged them a $3,500 retainer and $500 a month. But his most chilling tactic involved his young son, Michael. On the first of every month, Brankel would walk into the pet store holding Michael's hand. He would have the boy hand the bill to Alan Logan. It was a prop, just like Barnbaum's stethoscope. The presence of the child created an atmosphere of trust, a sense that Brankel was a family man just like them. It's sad, Alan said years later, he used that boy to rob us. He had no conscience. Brankel was living a triple life. The devoted father in Vincennes, the entrepreneur in Bloomington, and the serial bank robber on the interstate. He was a sociopath who viewed people as meal tickets, and he didn't care who he stepped on to fund his dapper lifestyle. Chapter 15, The Last Act. In 2004, the curtain finally closed, at least for a while. David Brankel received 21 years in federal prison for 43 counts of bank robbery. Donna Hewins, the waitress who became his getaway driver, received house arrest and probation. Brankel owed $175,000 in restitution, but for the Logans and the Sperrys, not a dime would ever return. Brankel maintained to the end that his work for them was legitimate. In Minnesota, at Vasica Federal Prison, Gerald Barnbaum, now in his 70s, sat in his cell. His projected release was 2018. Investigators who had tracked him for decades were not under any illusions. His age won't make a difference, one detective noted. He's a very dangerous human being. When he walks through those doors, he will be a physician again. He doesn't know how to be anyone else. The architects of deception had been dismantled, but their legacy remained in the lives they shattered and the trust they broke. They were men who proved that in a world of credentials and suits, a mask can be more powerful than the truth. As long as there is greed, and as long as there is a desire to believe in the perfect professional, there will be men like Barnbaum and Brankel waiting in the shadows, ready to put on the coat and start the show all over again. To be continued. Red Bones. Book 1 of the Shetland Mysteries. Prologue, The Wind and the Wire. The wind across the Shetland Islands did not blow. It howled. It was a living, breathing entity that tore off the North Sea, tasting of salt, ancient ice, and bitter secrets. It scoured the treeless hills of Bresse, rattling the corrugated iron roofs of the old crofts and bending the heather until it snapped. In the deep, suffocating darkness of a Tuesday night, Mima Wilson sat in her armchair, listening to it. The fire in the hearth had burned down to glowing peat embers, casting long, wavering shadows across the faded floral wallpaper. Mima was a woman carved from the landscape itself, weathered, unyielding, holding onto the land of her ancestors with a grip that neither time nor the desperate pleas of her own son could loosen. She pulled her thick whereupon shawl tighter around her frail shoulders. The clock on the mantelpiece ticked, a slow, methodical heartbeat in the silent room. Her gaze drifted to the window. Beyond the glass, the darkness was absolute, save for the faint, rhythmic sweep of the Bresse lighthouse cutting through the sea fret. Then another sound, a crunch of boots on the gravel outside. Mima froze. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the feral cats that sometimes sought shelter under the eaves. It was a heavy, deliberate step. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice raspy but firm. She wasn't a woman given to easy fright. She had lived through the war, through the treacherous nights of the Shetland bus, through the loss of her husband. Silence answered her. She slowly pushed herself up from the chair, her joints protesting. She moved toward the narrow hallway, her eyes darting to the old wooden cupboard where she kept the shotgun. It hadn't been fired in years, but the cold, heavy steel of it was a comfort she suddenly craved. "Is that you?" she called again, a sliver of uncertainty finally piercing her bravado. "Joseph?" The front door rattled. A shadow blocked the sliver of moonlight bleeding through the frosted glass. Mima's hand reached for the doorknob, hesitation warring with defiance. Then came the deafening roar. The glass shattered inward, a storm of jagged diamonds. The sheer force of the blast threw Mima backward, the world erupting into blinding white light and the sharp, metallic stench of curdite. She hit the floor, the sound of the wind rushing in through the broken door, mingling with the final, fading beat of her own heart. And then there was only the wind. Chapter 1: The Remains of the Morning. Detective Inspector Jimmy Perez woke to the sound of chaos. "Dad! Dad! Dad!" The voice belonged to his stepdaughter, Cassie, and it carried the distinct, frantic pitch of a teenager who was about to miss the morning ferry. Jimmy groaned, burying his face in the pillow for a fleeting second before the reality of single parenthood dragged him upward. The air in the house was freezing. The ancient boiler had given up sometime in the night again. He stumbled out of bed, running a hand through his dark, unruly hair. "I'm up, Cass! I'm up!" He found her in the hallway, a whirlwind of school bags, half-eaten toast, and exasperation. She looked so much like her mother that sometimes it caught Jimmy off guard. A sharp pain beneath his ribs that he had learned to live with. "Have you got everything?" Jimmy asked, trying to inject some authority into his sleep-graveled voice. He picked up a stray mitten from the floor. "You got your gloves? Your homework?" Cassie spun around, her school tie hanging loose, glaring at the mitten as if it had personally offended her. "What do you think this is? Dad, a fashion choice. It was Norse mythology this week. We had to build a longboat out of lolly sticks, and it's crumbling. Right, don't be cheeky, Jimmy muttered, helping her balance the fragile, glue-smeared wooden structure on top of her textbooks. Just get your coat on. Well, don't pretend like you're organized. She shot back, though there was a fond smile playing at the corners of her mouth. We're 15 minutes late already. The ferry won't wait. And if I'm late for Mr. Henderson's class again, he's going to make me recite the entire lineage of Odin. We'll make it, Jimmy promised, grabbing his own coat. The heavy, dark wool felt like armor. The drive to the Lerwick Ferry Terminal was a blur of gray skies and biting rain. After dropping Cassie off with a quick kiss to her forehead and a stern warning to keep her mobile phone turned on, Jimmy headed toward the police station. Lerwick was waking up. The stone buildings huddled together against the cold, while the harbor bobbed with fishing trawlers and oil industry vessels. The air smelled of diesel, salt, and the faint, sweet scent of brewing coffee from the cafes on Commercial Street. The station was already buzzing when Jimmy walked in. He shed his wet coat, hanging it on the rack by the door. Morning, Billy. Jimmy called out to the desk sergeant, who was busy trying to unjam the ancient photocopier. Morning, Inspector, Billy replied, giving the machine a sharp smack. Jimmy walked into the main bullpen, rubbing his hands together to get the circulation going. Morning, Craig. Anything exciting happen while I was trying to wrestle a Viking longboat into a Ford Focus? Sergeant Craig McCabe, a solidly built man with a permanent look of mild amusement, looked up from his monitor. Robert Junssen's in the cells. Found him drunk in the market square at 3 this morning. He was singing. Singing? Jimmy raised an eyebrow. Let me guess. Flower of Scotland? Worse. ABBA. Craigside. Any news for the Uppelier committee? It's Justin. Kaiser Jarl thinks it'll be the best fire festival we've ever had. Jimmy smiled faintly. Uppelier was the lifeblood of the Shetland winter. A massive Viking fire festival that ended in the burning of a galley ship and a night of spectacular drinking. Oh, I heard a rumor there's going to be a Lady Gaga squad this year. Big blonde wigs and meat dresses. Craig leaned in, lowering his voice conspiratorially. You know anything about that? Well, you see, I do. Jimmy deadpanned. But then, if I told you about it, I'd have to kill you. The banter was interrupted by the arrival of Duncan Hunter. Duncan was Cassie's biological father, a local businessman whose ambition was only matched by his knack for wearing expensive, deeply inappropriate Italian suits in the Shetland weather. He swaggered into the station as if he owned it. Kicks off as usual at 9:45. Duncan announced to no one in particular, referring to the festival. Your squad march along the esplanade to the ferry terminal. Fire to the galley at 8. Then drink will be taken. Copious amounts. Jimmy sighed. Oi, Duncan, you coming to hand yourself in for crimes against fashion, or are you looking to sublet the holding cells and rent them out to tourists? Duncan chuckled, unfazed. Well, that's not a bad idea. Jimmy, property is booming. But no, I'm actually here checking if you still need an engine for that old tugboat your dad's fixing up. I think I might have found one for you over in Aberdeen. Jimmy crossed his arms. And will there be a finder's fee involved in this miraculous discovery? Of course, Duncan grinned, flashing white teeth. What am I? A charity. Before Jimmy could retort, a sharp, choked noise drew his attention across the room. Detective Constable Sandy Wilson was standing by his desk, his hand gripping the telephone receiver so tightly his knuckles were white. The young officer's face had drained of all color, leaving his freckles standing out starkly against pale skin. He looked like he was going to be sick. "Tea?" Craig asked, oblivious, holding up a mug. "Excuse me," Jimmy said, his police instincts instantly overriding the casual morning atmosphere. He crossed the room quickly. "Sandy, what is it?" Sandy stared at the wall, his eyes wide and unseeing. "I'm sorry, Sandy, The voice on the other end of the line was saying, faintly audible in the quiet room. I didn't quite catch that. Jimmy gently placed a hand on the young man's shoulder. Sandy, talk to me. Sandy slowly turned his head. His breath was shallow. It's my grandmother's croft, over on Bresse. Mima, Jimmy asked softly. Sandy swallowed hard, tears suddenly welling in his eyes. I don't understand. My cousin Ronald just called. He was driving past. He said she's been shot. Sandy's voice broke into a jagged whisper. She's dead, sir. The air in the station seemed to vanish. The banter, the talk of festivals and boat engines evaporated, replaced by the chilling, heavy silence of murder. Chapter 2: Contamination. Jimmy Perez's mind shifted gears with the smooth, cold precision of a well-oiled machine. Grief was a luxury they did not have time for right now. Okay, Jimmy said, his voice low, steady, and utterly commanding. He took the phone from Sandy's trembling hand and placed it back on the cradle. Sandy, look at me. Sandy blinked, a tear tracking down his cheek. He looked impossibly young in that moment. What I want you to do, Jimmy instructed, making sure he maintained eye contact, grounding the young officer, is I want you to phone Billy on the landline and give him all the details. Every single thing Ronald told you. Do not leave anything out. Sandy nodded numbly. I'm going to get the inter-island ferry to Bresse. Jimmy continued, already shrugging his heavy coat back on. I'll be there in 20 minutes. You are going to go over there right now. You live closer to the ferry terminal. My dad, Sandy stammered. I need to tell my dad. Joseph. No, Jimmy said sharply. Your dad is a civilian. Right now, you are a police officer. You go to the croft. When you get there, you establish a perimeter. Do you understand me? Yes, sir. Jimmy leaned in closer, his tone softening just a fraction, but the steel remained. Is there any sign of a break-in at the croft? Did Ronald say? He said there is some broken glass. The front door. Do you know if the neighbors heard anything? I don't know. Her nearest neighbor is miles away. There's just Ronald. His croft is just up the road. He passed by on his way back from the night shift, and she's just over the ridge. He saw the broken glass from the track. Jimmy processed the information. Bresse was sparsely populated. A shotgun blast in the middle of a storm might go entirely unnoticed. Could it have been an accident? Do you think a shotgun blast up close? Sandy shook his head, a look of profound sickness washing over him. No. I mean, Mima owns a gun, an old double barrel. She keeps it in the hall cupboard, but she wouldn't. We don't know what happened yet. Jimmy interrupted gently. Now listen to me carefully. Sandy, you get to that croft. What's the mobile signal like up there? Terrible. Comes and goes. You'll need to go up the hill behind the house to get a bar. Right. Okay. This is what I want you to do. I want you to use your radio or phone the hospital in Lerwick if you have to use the Crofts landline. But try not to contaminate anything. Get them to send an ambulance. Set up a common approach path for the medics and the forensics team. Put up a windshield if the weather is destroying evidence. Jimmy paused, searching Sandy's face. The boy was hungover, Jimmy realized with a flash of irritation. He could smell the stale alcohol, something sweet and cloying. You think you can handle that? Jimmy asked, his tone demanding a positive answer. Yeah, Sandy sniffed, wiping his nose with the back of his sleeve. Can I cover her up? The wind is awful today. No, Jimmy said, his voice flat. I'm sorry, Sandy. We need photographs. The scene has to remain exactly as it was found. Look, I know you were close to her, but we multifunction here. You're a detective today, not a grandson. Sandy nodded, his jaw tightening. He grabbed his coat and rushed out the door. Jimmy turned to Craig, who was already on the phone, organizing the crime scene investigators. Suddenly, Jimmy's mobile rang in his pocket. He pulled it out. The caller ID flashed, Tosh. DC Allison Tosh McIntosh was his newest transfer from the mainland. Brilliant, slightly chaotic, and currently supposed to be off duty. Inspector, Tasha's voice came through, bright and alert. Did I wake you? No, sir. I've been up for ages, Jimmy replied, his mind already on the ferry. Well, look, I could lose my signal at any moment on this crossing. I want you to get on the ferry to Bresse. Mima Wilson has been found dead. Shot. Shot? Tosh sounded taken aback. Gun violence in Shetland was incredibly rare. Understood. I'm on my way. Get here fast, Tosh, Jimmy said, stepping out of the station into the biting wind. And bring your game. This one is going to be messy. Chapter 3, Blood on the Heather. The ferry ride to Bresse took exactly 7 minutes, but to Jimmy Perez, it felt like hours. The gray waters of the Sound were choppy, the ferry rolling heavily over the swells. Jimmy stood on the open deck, ignoring the freezing spray, his eyes fixed on the approaching island. Bresse was a rugged, beautiful, an unforgiving place. Green hills rolled into dramatic cliffs that plummeted into the churning sea. Mima Wilson's croft sat isolated on a ridge, a lonely sentinel overlooking the water. By the time Jimmy's car navigated the narrow, winding single-track road and pulled up to the croft, the scene was already cordoned off with flapping blue and white police tape. The wind up here was vicious, tearing at Jimmy's clothes as he stepped out of the vehicle. He ducked under the tape and approached the small stone house. Sandy was standing near the front door, shivering violently, holding a digital camera. He looked 100 years older than he had that morning. Sandy, Jimmy said, his voice come amidst the roaring wind. Report. The gun hasn't been fired for years, sir, Sandy said, his teeth chattering. I checked the whole cupboard without touching anything. It's empty. Did Mima own this place? Jimmy asked, pulling on blue nitrile gloves. Yeah, the land's been in the family for generations. Outside. Out the back. Sandy pointed a shaking finger. Has anyone called your dad? Yeah. And Where's he now? At home in Lerwick, Sandy said, looking down at his boots. I told him not to come down. Did not feel right breaking the news like that on the mobile. But I had to tell him to stay away. I was worried about contamination. No, you did the right thing. Jimmy reassured him. It was a heavy burden for a son to bear, telling his father that his mother had been murdered. Can you tell if anything's missing from the house? I don't think so, Sandy replied, his voice dull. Look, Mima's phone was unplugged. I put it back in to call the hospital. Used a pen to push the jack. She didn't have anything to steal. She always lived alone. Her granddad died young. My granddad died years ago. She just had this land. Jimmy stepped carefully toward the front door. The glass panes were shattered, fragments scattered across the threshold like crushed ice. He stepped over them, entering the dimly lit hallway. The croft smelled of old peat smoke, lavender soap, and the sharp, unmistakable metallic tang of blood. Mima Wilson lay on her back in the narrow corridor. The shotgun blast had caught her square in the chest. It was a devastating wound. Jimmy forced himself to look at it objectively, shutting off the part of his brain that recognized this woman as the kindly lady who used to give Cassie boiled sweets at the county fair. The spread of the pellets suggested the shooter had been standing just outside the threshold, firing inward. Close range. Brutal. Intentional. What's the story with the dig? Jimmy called out over his shoulder to Sandy, desperate to shift the young man's focus away from the body. He had noticed the scarred earth and tarpaulins flapping wildly in the field just behind the croft. Archaeological team from Aberdeen Uni, Sandy answered, his voice echoing slightly in the stone house, led by a Professor Paul Berglund. They've been here for a few weeks. Jimmy crouched down, examining the floorboards around the body without touching them. Right. Take as many photos as you can, the body, the surrounding area, and inside the croft. Get the angles of the broken glass, and then email them to the pathology lab in Inverness. Do you think you can manage that? Of course, Sandy said, though he didn't move. Jimmy stood up and looked closely at his DC. Sandy's eyes were bloodshot, his skin sallow. You sure? Jimmy asked, his tone sharpening. Because your eyes look like piss holes in the snow. Sandy flinched. Sorry, sir. Late night. I thought I was off duty. We're never off duty here. Sandy, you still not got that yet. Don't worry. It happens to the best of us. Jimmy sighed, softening slightly. It's not that, is it? It's the shock. It's the Dutch chocolate vodka from last night, Sandy admitted miserably. I was drinking over in Lerwick. Right. Well, sober up fast. Go film your cousin Ronald, the one who found her. I've not met him. His mother and my mother were cousins, Sandy explained, adjusting the camera strap. He's taking his place on his family's pelagic trawler, the Cassandra. Yeah, she's a beauty. State of the art, Jimmy noted, filing the information away. Fishing in Shetland was big business, and pelagic trawlers were floating factories worth millions. Not like my old man's tugboat. I hear the Haldanes are worth a fortune. Is that right? They've got part of the fishing quota. They do okay. Sandy nodded. They're rich. Does that cause any problems between the families? Jimmy asked quietly, watching Sandy's reaction. Your family has the land. Their family has the money? Sandy bristled defensively. No tension. We're family. Jimmy didn't press it. Family in Shetland was a complicated web. Go take the photos, Sandy. Then I want you to go home. Be with your dad. He's going to need you. Chapter 4, The Alibi. Ronald Holdan was a mountain of a man, built like a brick outhouse with a thick red beard and hands the size of dinner plates. He stood outside his own croft, a mile down the road from Mima's, smoking a cigarette with trembling fingers. Jimmy approached him slowly, letting the man see him coming. Mr. Holdan, I'm De Perez. I'm sorry for your loss. Ronald took a drag of his cigarette, the tip glowing fiercely in the gloom. It's a bad business. Bloody awful. Who would do a thing like that to an old woman? You must be stunned, Jimmy said, his voice soothing but probing. But I'm going to have to ask you a few questions. You passed by the croft last night? Ronald grunted. I was just on my way home. I was drinking over in Lerwick, like I do most nights when I'm off shift. Drinking heavily? Look, I'm no long back from sea, Ronald said, a defensive edge creeping into his voice. I don't know what to do with myself on land. Now get off my back. For goodness sake. It's my Andy lying dead up there. All right, take it easy. Jimmy placated him. Just walk me through your night. These days, the deep sea ships only port at the main island. So you were in Lerwick. I missed the last ferry back to Bresse. Had a wee nightcap at the pub. Which pub? The Kelly. I slept in my car at the terminal, then got the first ferry over this morning. That's when I drove past and saw the glass. Jimmy noted the timeline. It was plausible, but it lacked witnesses for the crucial hours. What about your wife, Anna? Was she at home alone all night? Ronald scowled. The baby was sleeping. Anna took the opportunity to join me in Lerwick for a bit earlier in the evening, but she came back early. My mum, Jackie, was here keeping an eye on the bairn. How long did Jackie stay? Half an hour. Anna said she came over to tell us about a piece of bone she found at the dig. Jimmy's interest piqued. The archaeological dig on Mima's land? Your mother volunteers there? She's actually quite excited about it. Found an old bone. Jimmy nodded slowly. Right. One last thing. Ronald, you hold a shotgun license, don't you? Ronald stiffened. Aye, for the rabbits. Has the gun been fired recently? I went out shooting rabbits after I got home last week. You often go out lamping with a spotlight. I'll need to take the gun. Now, if you don't mind, for testing, routine elimination. Ronald stared at him for a long moment, the hostility radiating off him in waves. Finally, he nodded sharply. Fine. It's in the lockbox. As Jimmy secured the weapon in the trunk of his car, Tosh pulled up in an unmarked police vehicle. She hopped out, pulling a beanie down over her ears against the cold. "Boss," she greeted him, "forensics are on the ferry over. What have we got?" Mima Wilson, late 70s. Shotgun blast to the chest at close range. Found by her nephew, Ronald Holdan, who conveniently missed his ferry last night and has no alibi. Jimmy briefed her rapidly. "I want you to head over to the archaeological dig behind the croft. Find a Professor Paul Berglund and a student named Hattie James. See what they know. Apparently